Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is actually the first video in my channel and I want to share my birth story. I'm Ariana, by the way. I completely forgot to share that. I'm not good with being in front of the camera, but when I was pregnant, I relied on YouTube for a lot of my positive birth stories, and I feel like I owe one to this community because of the difference that it made for me to hear your guys' stories. I know this is like really late to share, 10 months in, but I did write down my birth story a few months ago just to keep everything fresh, exactly how it went, and I'm going to share it with you guys. I'm going to be looking down on my notes just because this is a very descriptive story. I don't want to miss out any details, and I tend to forget things if I'm just going off of my memory. Mom brain, you guys know that it's real. My birth story actually begins on July 25th. That was my husband Max and mine 2-month wedding anniversary. We weren't trying to conceive, but we were not trying. We were kind of like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then we'll just see what happens. Anyway, I began to have some pregnancy symptoms. Okay, I do remember I was very tired, very tired. All I wanted to do is sleep. And I had so many things to do. We were constantly going out and doing things like every single day. And I just wanted to stay home and sleep. And I was so tired. And I was like, okay, let's go get the pregnancy tests. And I took the test, and it was a very faint line, but it was positive. And I told my husband, and we were so excited, but I didn't let myself feel the full excitement yet because I wasn't sure. Like in my head, I was thinking, what if it's a false positive, or the test is wrong? And so I didn't let myself get emotionally invested right then. I waited a little longer, and then I took a test, and it was for sure. Like it was if you know that every day, if you take a test after you get pregnant, the line becomes darker and darker because of that hormone that multiplies in your body. Don't mind me drinking my coffee. Yeah, so then once we confirmed that I was truly pregnant, I became super excited. I also had a complete shift. Before then, I didn't really care about, well, I did, but not to this extent. I didn't care too much about what I ate, about exercise, about what I would put on my body, about the things we would have in our home and the things we would use in our home. And the moment I became pregnant, it was like a complete mind shift. It hit me that I was responsible for another human, for the growth of that human, for the health of the growth of that human. And my mind did a 180-degree turn. I scratched everything that I knew and how I lived, and I began to do a lot of digging. I went very deep into books, into videos. I wanted to know everything and different sides of everything, and I kind of went on a more holistic journey, more naturally minded. I started eating very healthy. I cut out almost all sugar out of my diet. I began walking, especially later on, closer to like my second, third trimester. I began walking a lot because in the beginning I was just really tired. But me and my husband would walk every single day for at least 30 minutes. I changed our medicine, the way that we perceive medicine, a more natural approach to things. I completely changed our cleaning products from super toxic to more natural, and a lot of these things were trial and error We were also living on a very tight budget, so I had to work with, the budget that we had. And this was hard on my husband. He was not expecting this. And he has this really corny joke that I became Hellenistic. Not holistic, but Hellenistic, because it brought hell in his life. Looking back, yes, I did go a little overboard and a little crazy, but in a good way. It wasn't a negative thing. It was a positive thing for our family. And I am very grateful for my husband for being supportive of these motherly instincts that were awakening inside of me. And instead of suppressing them, he allowed me to nourish those instincts and do my research and change things and become a mother in a sense. I hope this makes sense. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know below if you had the same thing. I was going completely into this with no previous baby knowledge, nothing. And I've never babysat babies, and I had no idea like how to even change a diaper. I decided early on, and probably in my 3rd month of pregnancy, that I wanted an unmedicated vaginal birth. And I had a big motivation for that was I read the book. It's a phenomenal book by Mama Natural, a guide to childbirth, I believe. But if you type in Mama Natural, her book will come up. And she goes over the pros and cons of different births and whatnot. And she encourages a natural, holistic, unmedicated vaginal approach if you are a low-risk mom and if this is something that you desire to have. And I decided early on that I wanted an unmedicated vaginal birth. I, by nature, am a people pleaser. And I knew that if I was going to birth in a hospital, most likely my birth was not going to go according to how I envisioned it to go or according to my plan, because I do a lot of things and choices that I make can be easily swayed by someone pressuring me. And so I decided if I want to do everything that I can to have this birth that I desired, I need to be in the right environment and atmosphere to do so. We are incredibly blessed to have my husband's cousins living in San Diego, which is about 2.5 hours from us. And we asked them if it would be okay for me to stay closer to my due date at their home, live there for a short while, from 37 weeks on till I give birth. And they agreed, and we were so grateful for that. And I transferred to a birth center in San Diego, Best Start Birth Center, amazing birth center. And I would begin to travel to San Diego for my prenatal appointments. And the birth center was full of very knowledgeable midwives. They were so friendly, so open, so informative. They would about an hour for every prenatal visit. I never felt rushed. It was incredible. It's a really great place. If you're in the area, you should check them out. And I forgot to mention that is the closest birth center to us, the closest freestanding birth center to us. So there was no birth center closer to us. I was excited to see that our insurance was going to cover us. And of course, it's a whole another story, but closer to the due date, we actually had to fight to be able to birth in that birth center because our insurance changed several times on us. Anyway, it was my husband. Surprisingly, it was my husband that fought the hardest for me to be able to birth in that birth center. And I was able to, but it was that, like I said, that's a whole nother story. Despite all the preparations that I had made for my first child's birth, I had one more obstacle, and probably the biggest one, and that was fear. I had so much fear of birth. Before I got married, a couple of my aunts at supper times decided to share the birth stories with me, and they had very traumatic and horrifying births, and they warned me out of genuine concern. They had no bad intentions. They just warned me of what was to come, or what I had to expect. And I had those stories in the back of my head, and I had so much fear inside of me of birthing, that it was going to be super painful, and then all these things are going to go wrong, and there's a lot of blood involved, and the horror. I was terrified. And one common thing that I've read and heard is that fear is the biggest hindrance to the birth that you want. And I knew I had to do something about that. So I started reading a book called Ina May's Guide to Natural Childbirth. And the first part of that book, there's two parts. The first part is just birth stories, and the second part is information on pregnancy and birth and postpartum. It's a phenomenal read. I recommend it to every pregnant mom to go and buy that book. If that's the only book you read that book. It is amazing. That book got rid of half of my fear, and I am not exaggerating. Reading those beautiful, powerful birth stories, oh my goodness, I wanted to birth that way. These moms, no matter what background they come from or who they are, all these women had something in common, and it was that they had these incredible births, birthing the way that they wanted, completely unrestricted by anything. And it just gave them life to be able to do that. Another thing I did is I listened to countless positive birth stories on YouTube. I would particularly look up unmedicated vaginal birth stories because that is the birth that I was going for, and maybe it was naive of me, but I didn't want to think of any other way. I was just so centered on having this birth this way. And that's what I filled my mind with. And I listened to countless stories on YouTube. And another thing was when I was interviewing doulas, little background, I had a lot of most of the baby things that we have were passed down from my husband's little sister. He has a little sister. And my mother-in-law gave me all her things. And so I basically didn't have to buy much. So for our baby shower, we asked for money to cover whatever additional costs we have for anything. And out of that, a portion of that money I used to get a doula, because I realized that we live very far away from any relatives. My mom passed away 10 years ago, and I wouldn't have my mom present there. I wouldn't have anybody, and I wanted somebody to be another woman to be able to guide me throughout this foreign process that I have never experienced before. And I decided that I wanted a doula. And in the process of interviewing doulas, there was one doula that we did not hire, but she was a very sweet lady, and she did give me a good advice. She shared a podcast with me. It is a Christian podcast where women share their birth stories and how they prayed for certain births, and they trusted God throughout their process, throughout pregnancy and throughout the birthing process, and even postpartum, and they received those births. And it's called A Heavenly Welcome, I believe. I'll share it down below. But it is such an uplifting and inspiring podcast. And after 3 of these things, the book, Ina May's book, YouTube, positive birth stories, and this podcast, I had no fear left in me. No fear. I was excited to birth. I know some of you that probably have birthed already, you're thinking you're crazy. Looking back, I'm like, I was so naive. And I'm glad I was. I am so glad that I had no fear of birthing. And I was excited to birth. I was inspired by the podcast to start praying for God's hand in my birth. And there were certain things that were going on in my pregnancy that were not that were not the way I wanted them to be, and I would ask God to change these things and have them come out a certain way. And I'm really grateful for God's grace, because I did not have as much faith as I probably should have had, but God is really good. Then I hit 41 weeks pregnant. I had tried a few natural methods to induce myself, non-dangerous ones, like I didn't do midwife sprue or anything, just very gentle methods, and nothing worked. And I was like, whatever, this baby can come whenever she's ready. And 41 weeks, I woke up to contractions, mild contractions. I had waken up before to mild contractions, so it wasn't something new to me, and I wasn't 100% sure that I was in labor. So I didn't wake up my husband. It was 6:45 a.m., April 5th, and I got on my birth ball. I bounced away my birth ball and listened to my birth playlist. I went to the bathroom, took a few more pictures, mirror pictures of my tummy. And my contractions weren't stopping. I texted my doula and I let her know what was going on, and she told me get in the shower, or try to get some more rest. If they slow down, it's not labor. And I was honestly too excited to get into the shower or to go to bed. I did not want this to slow down. I wanted to have this baby already. And I was excited. So I actually just kept bouncing on my ball and listening to music, and my contractions were not slowing down. They were getting stronger and closer, and they were very consistent. And I called my midwife. It was a Sunday, so I let her know that looks like I am in labor. First time moms, birth can be from 24 to even 48 hours. Birth can last a really long time. So she told me to keep her updated if there's any changes. And she told me to just keep laboring, stay home. She didn't want me to come too soon, because if you come before you are over 6 centimeters dilated, that you have to go back home, because that birth center has only 3 birthing rooms, and they cannot have a lot of moms in their birthing without any rooms or any room in general. And it was around 9 o'clock that I woke up my husband, and I told him that it might be the day. And I told him to book a hotel. We both decided ahead of time that we were going to book a hotel. It was actually my husband's idea, and I'm so grateful for him, because it was the best for us. His cousins that we were staying with have 2 little boys, and I wouldn't feel comfortable laboring around those 2 little boys, and I didn't want them to be uncomfortable or afraid. And I'm so grateful that we decided to go to the hotel, because I am loud when I labor. I am not quiet, and the boys would have been terrified. It was also during COVID, that first, right when COVID hit, and so they were staying home. So the hotel was booked. My husband went and got me my last meal, and around 1 o'clock we were on our way. My contractions were really strong at that time already, and I had to fully concentrate on each contraction. I could not talk. I could not focus on anything else other than breathing through each contraction. And on our way, it was about a 20-minute drive. I only had 3 contractions, thank God, because if I had them as I had while I was in labor at the house, that would have been very difficult. Laboring in the car is not fun. And then we got to the hotel, and it was like a complete shift. Like when we got to the hotel, I was just in a lot of pain. I know that a lot of more natural-minded pregnancy blogs or accounts or whatever, a lot of them tend to call it not pain but pressure. And I was prepared to see it as pressure, not pain, but it was pain. It was painful. The contractions were painful, but I was still focused on my plan. And I still wanted that unmedicated vaginal birth. And as I said, we got to the hotel. My doula arrived 5 minutes later. My husband cleaned the shower. I have a thing for shower bathtubs. I don't know. I always feel like they're dirty. And so anyway, my husband cleaned it with our cleaners that we brought. And he turned on the water, filled up the tub, and then he turned on the shower head, so it was also raining down hot water. And it wasn't too hot. It was not dangerously hot. And dimmed the lights. I couldn't listen to music anymore. It would bother me. My doula put on ocean sounds for me, and that was very relaxing. And she dimmed the lights, and it was dim in there. And I just had the shower water sprinkling down on me, and I was in that warm water. And that's how I was coping. I am not someone who likes to be touched when I'm in labor. I did not want anybody to touch me. I did not want anybody to talk. I asked everybody to just, my husband and my doula to just not talk. I needed to completely focus on every contraction. And from that point on, it was very, very hazy. That memory is just very foggy and kind of like a dream. And because I think of the pain that I was in, the intensity of those contractions, and during each contraction when it would start, I would want to get out of the water. I could not stand any heat on me, and I would get out of the water and I would get through that contraction however my body moved me, whether it was squatting, whatever it was arching my back, whatever it was, I would move with my body. And as soon as my contraction was over, I would be cold and I would get back into that water, and my husband would dip a towel in the water and he would put it over my chest because I would be cold in the front and I had the water sprinkling in the back. And I reached a point where it was so intense that I was like, I have to be at 6 centimeters. There was no way I'm not at 6 centimeters at this point. It was already almost 3 o'clock. And we decided to go to the birth center. And we came to the birth center, and I haven't had any cervical checks before that. And so that was my first one. And my midwife asked me, she said, "Do you want to know how dilated you are?" And I said, if I am not at 6 centimeters, do not tell me how dilated I am, because I don't want to become discouraged, knowing that that's how I am. I can become easily discouraged. And so she checked me, and I went to do a urine sample. And when I came back, and she said, "You are not at 6 centimeters yet." And I didn't become too discouraged. I kind of just received it like, okay, I'm just a little more. And she told my husband and my doula how much I was. They told me later that I was only at a 3 at that point. You have to be at 10 to be ready to push. 100% effaced and fully dilated. Fully dilated is 10 centimeters. I was only at a 3. So technically, I have not even been in active labor, technically. And it was already 3:30 p.m. at that point. I had been in labor for almost 9 hours. And my midwife told me, if you went to labor for another 30 minutes, if you dilate by a centimeter in those 30 minutes, I will allow you to stay. There had not been anybody else birthing at that time. And I labored there for another 30 minutes. Another thing that she said is that my baby was stationed very high up. So she had not even descended lower. She was very high up. And I did have a lot of pain in my pubic bone, and during those 30 minutes I was there, my doula helped me do some spinning babies move. So my doula helped me do a upside down tilt. I don't remember the name of those. And that was not fun during my contraction. And I also did some tummy tucks where you pick up your tummy and you straighten out your back as if you're against a wall to promote the baby's head to get past that pubic bone. Through every contraction, I would do those tummy lifts. And came 4 o'clock, 30 minutes later, my midwife checks me again, and I have not progressed another centimeter. So she said, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to go home and just keep us updated. So we went back to the hotel, and at that point, I was not coping. I was literally in survival mode. It was hard. And I got back. My midwife gave me some pain medicine, and she said, try to take these painkillers and try to get some rest. And I decided against the painkillers. I did get into bed, and I lasted through about before the next contraction came, which was a very short period of time. I laid there and I almost fell asleep, and then the contraction came, and I was like, I have to go back in the shower. I have to go. At that point, I did not care about my modesty, honestly. All my clothing went off right away. I could not stand a single item of clothing on me. I needed it off. I went back into the shower, back into the bathtub, and same process all over again. With the contraction, I get out of that hot water, and I get through that contraction, and then as soon as it's over, I get back into the water, and I even fell asleep. Between those contractions, I would fall asleep, and I would wake up, and my husband was there the entire time. He would try to give me like fruit pouches and water, and I didn't want any of it. I would try to take some, but I didn't want any kind of water, any kind of snacks, nothing. I didn't want any of it. I repeated several times in my head, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And I know that this verse is kind of taken out of context, but repeating that God can give me the strength that I need to get through this, that is what kept me going, honestly. I just repeated that over and over and over over and over again in my head, nonstop, that I can get through this. Through every contraction, I would repeat that in my head. There were 2-3 times that I had thoughts like, if only I could have an epidural right now. There were 2-3 times that I almost started crying. Like I was holding back tears. I did not want to cry. I did not want to break. I had to keep going. I could do this. I was made for this. I can do this. And my husband would gently encourage me and tell me how great I was doing. He was amazing. And as I labored in the bathtub, I felt a tiny pop inside of me. I wasn't sure if that was what I had felt or if it was imagined. But then there was a shift after that pop. I had a shift to go poop. And I got in the shower, and I assumed that my body was only cleaning itself out, because if you have been through birth classes, you probably already know this, that if you usually before labor, your body will clear itself out, or during labor, your body will clear itself out because your baby's coming through, and every amount of space in this area is used for the baby to come through. And so everything's got to go. And I only thought that that's what was going on. But little did I know is that I had started to push. And it was about 6:30 p.m. already. And my doula was on the phone with the midwife to notify her of the change in my behavior. I was not breathing anymore. I was not doing that loud, low breathing anymore. I was grunting. It was an ugly sound. I really hope we did not have people staying next door to us in that hotel because I don't know what they would have thought. I had this deep throatal grunting sound during each push that I had, and I could not be in the water more. I would just pace back and forth in the bathroom, just dripping water everywhere and just grunting. And TMI, but I did also poop. And my midwife was asking my doula to ask me, do I think I should go back to the birth center? And I was thinking, I don't know. I don't want to go and like have to come back. Like, it's only been 2 hours since we came back. I didn't think that I would have progressed already to the pushing phase. I thought my body was just clearing itself out. And my midwife told me, just come in. We'll check you again. We'll see how you're doing. And she recommended that I breathe in like these short, high breaths. I don't know how to describe them, to keep my body from fully bearing down with all strength. And so it helped me I still pushed each time, but not as strongly. And then we arrived and were admitted at the birth center at 7:13 p.m. I came there, all my clothing came off. I did not care. I was glad that I was the only person there. My midwife checked me and she informed me that I was fully faced and fully dilated, which is insane to me that I went from 3 to 10 in 3 hours. It's absolutely crazy to me, and it's just a reminder to me that birth is not a schedule. It does not have a schedule. It has its own timing. Anything can happen at any time. But that's a whole different topic. I get very fired up on that topic because, anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I went straight to the toilet because, like I said, I still thought I was going to, poop. And I was pushing at the toilet, and my midwife was checking, and she's like, yep, the baby's coming. I can feel her head. And she asked me if I want to feel her head, and I said no. This was very strange to me. I did not have that like mother-baby connection during my pregnancy. It was very awkward to me to like talk and sing to my belly. I never did that. My way of bonding with this baby was nurturing and taking care of it and taking care of myself so that this baby would be healthy. My motherly instincts kicked in differently, but I did not have that like connection during my pregnancy. So that's why for me, like, to touch my baby while she's coming out was completely foreign and weird to me. I did not want to do it. My midwife asked me if I want to labor on a toilet. I said yes. And she said, are you sure you don't want to try laboring on the bed? Maybe it'll be easier for you to labor on the bed, like on hands and knees. And I said, okay, fine, I'll try it. Like I said, I'm a people pleaser. I just do what I'm told when I'm in like a very high stress, high pressure situation. So I went to the bed and I pushed, I think, twice on all fours. It was not too comfortable, and during those few times I asked if the tub was ready. I wanted a water birth. I asked if the tub was ready, and they said not yet, and I kept asking over and over again. I hope they did not get annoyed because in my head it wasn't registering how many times I was asking them. It was many times. And then finally it said, okay, you can get in the tub. It's safe to get in the tub. The water is high enough. And I got into the tub. They informed me that if I want to birth in the tub, I have to be laying on my back and with my feet up, which I did not know that. So later on I was kind of like, I wish I knew. But in the moment I didn't really care. I just wanted this baby out. And so it was already 7:30, around there, 7:25, 7:30. And I had been pushing for about an hour already. And I gave a few more pushes. I felt the ring of fire. It's a real thing. It was very real to me. For a few minutes I felt that, and they told me slow down so you don't tear. I did not care. I needed this baby out, and I kept pushing, and then she came out. At 7:32 p.m. my daughter was born. the moment of her coming out was such an indescribable supernatural experience. I had never experienced that before, obviously, but it was so different. I finally met her. She was so foreign, and yet she was my own. I honestly could labor so many times just to relive this moment. It was such an incredible moment. I want to cry when I talk about this, but I'm not going to. It brings tears to my eyes every time I think about this moment, because it is such a magical, beautiful moment. And I was so happy. And I held her and I rubbed her little body. She was born with a cord around her neck. She had no visible vernix on her body. She had so much hair. I was so shocked. She had so much hair. She didn't cry. She whimpered, but she was so beautiful. She was so tiny. She was born at 22 inches long and 8 pounds and 4.5 ounces. And my heart was so full. The bond that I have with her now is completely different than I had with her when she was born, though I will say that it was such a foreign experience to me that I didn't have that, I don't know how to describe it. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know also below, because it was I knew she was mine and my heart was so full, but at the same time she was very foreign to me. And it took me time to grow to her, to feel that closeness. After she was born, we waited till the cord stopped pulsing, and then my husband cut the cord, and then I held her, and then I was ready to birth the placenta. And so I gave her to him for skin to skin, because I just wanted to focus on birthing the placenta and then getting stitched up, because I did tear, and then I was going to give her my full attention. And so I birthed the placenta. It was not hard. It was really quick. Just the placenta came out, and then I went on the bed to get stitched up, and wasn't too painful. It was a little painful, but not too bad. And midwives are trained to do this, by the way, so in case you were wondering. And while I was birthing the placenta, my daughter actually happened to pass some meconium on my husband, and which was really funny. And then the midwife showed him how to change a diaper, and I was so grateful for that, because like I said earlier, I did not know how to change a diaper, and I was ashamed to admit that. I was stitched up. I had a shallow 2nd-degree tear, and then I was finally ready to feed Selena. I was showed how to hold her, how to feed her, and she latched on well, and she was eating, and my husband was feeding me. I had Chipotle. It was really good. I couldn't eat too much. I was still kind of like on that birth high, and I was not that hungry still. To be able to go home, you have to have a protein-full meal. And so the next few hours we ate. They would take our vitals, my baby's vitals. I had a fundal massage a few times, where they massage your tummy to make sure that your uterus is shrinking, to promote those contractions, to shrink that uterus, because it goes from being the size of a watermelon to being the size of your fist, which is super crazy. Another thing is, every time I would breastfeed, I would also get contractions, because you have all these endorphins that are released, all these love hormones that are released, and all of that gives contractions to shrink that uterus, and which is very painful. I did not expect that, and I don't know if I forgot or if I just didn't pay attention to that much, but yeah, that was hard, and that lasted for about 5 days. We were ready to go home at midnight, so we were there for almost 5 hours. On my husband's side's family, all the babies were born really big. So I expected a very big baby. And his mom told me bring 0 to 3 month clothing, not newborn clothing, to the hospital or to my birth center. So I brought 0 to 3 months and she was swallowed up in that. It was way too big. It was really funny. But yeah, and so we got all packed up and it was pouring rain outside and we went back to the hotel. We stayed that night in the hotel for the first time as a family of 3, and it was an incredible experience. I did get the birth that I wanted. I did get the birth that I envisioned. I was still traumatized to a degree by the pain that comes with it. But I am glad that I went in there with a naive mind. I will say that up until 4 months, the idea of having another baby terrified me, and I was like, no, wait. And then after 4 months, I'm like, okay, I'm open to having another one. And then now I'm like, okay, I want one. And honestly, I would do a vaginal unmedicated birth all over again because it is an incredible experience to know that my body can go through that. And it did go through that. And I will say my tips for the birth that you want is, number 1, get rid of all fear. I cannot say that enough. Stop reading about all of those, the most coolest popular gadgets, all these things, because there's a time and place for that. But the number 1 thing, if you want the birth that you desire, and I'm sure that many of you, if you're watching this, you want an unmedicated vaginal birth, get rid of fear. Listen to those positive birth stories. Listen to those positive podcasts, YouTube videos. Read those positive books. Become educated on ways to get rid of fear. That is the most important thing, is to get rid of fear. I don't have fear of doing labor all over again. I don't have fear because I know what my body can do. If you are able to get to the point where you become empowered and you have no fear of birthing, it will help you along the way. Yes, of course, I know what to expect, and I am in a way intimidated because I know what's going to come the second time around, but I don't have fear because, in a way, this is really hard to explain, but I don't have fear because I know I can do this. I've done this and I can do it again, and it's just a short period of time that you are in birth and labor, and then after that is all over, you've done it and you feel so empowered and you feel so strong, and you did it and you can do it. And if you can do this, you can do anything else. There's nothing that can stop you, because honestly, this is the hardest thing I've done in my life physically. I hope this story encourages you. If you are pregnant, you can do it. You will do it. I hope that you get the birth that you want. If you are a Christian, pray to God about the birth that you want. Ask Him specifically what you want, how you want this to be, how do you want that to go, and have faith that God hears your prayers, and God wants good for you. And everything that I asked God, I got, except one thing. I asked God to not tear, and I tore. But again, God knows. God's knowledge is higher than ours. He knows everything beyond our understanding. So I trust that that is for a good thing, that I tore, and I trust God completely. And let me have you meet my daughter. Her name is Selena. This is my daughter. Say hi. She was on a walk with her dad. Look at the camera. Say hi. Welcome. Welcome. She is the happiest child ever. She is always smiling, always happy. She's so energetic. She is such a blessing. I cannot get enough of her every single day. Yeah? Yeah? Where are you going? Where are you going? You want to go play? If you want to share your birth stories below, if this is not your first birth or second or third, feel free to share below. I love birth stories, and I can listen and read them all day long. Thank you for watching. Please like this video. I will link down the books below that helped me. I'll link the podcast as well. I will be putting out videos weekly as well, so feel free to subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.